Close your eyes. The past is about to speak. When you think of an ancient Egyptian priest, you probably imagine a mysterious, bald-headed figure in pristine white robes, standing in a golden, torchlit chamber, whispering arcane secrets into the ear of a pharaoh. You might picture him wielding immense, almost magical power, commanding spirits and reading omens in the stars. But the day-to-day reality was often far less about cosmic power and far more about meticulous, repetitive, and often grueling physical work. It was a job, governed by schedules and rules as strict as any modern corporation, centered on the endless, consuming task of keeping a god clean, fed, and content. Honestly, with the pre-dawn starts, the full body shaving with a bronze razor, and the sheer amount of cleaning, you probably wouldn't last a week. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight and what time it is for you. It's always a treat to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your awareness returns to you not as a gentle awakening, but as a deep, primal summons from the very fabric of the darkness. There is no sound, no gentle birdsong, no distant stirring of a city. The world is a void, thick and silent, and for a moment you are just a consciousness floating in it. Then memory returns. The god, the temple, the schedule. Your duty is the first and only thought that solidifies out of the blackness. There is no alarm, no rooster crowing just yet. Your internal clock, honed by years of this routine, is more reliable than the sun itself. You swing your legs off your low wooden bed frame, the one strung with woven reeds that has imprinted its pattern onto the skin of your back. Your bare feet meet the stone floor. The cold is immediate, a shock that travels up your ankles and into your bones, a stark reminder of your physical form. Your home is a simple, mud brick dwelling within the wider temple complex, reserved for priests of your rank. It's small, functional, and shares walls with your colleagues. You can sometimes hear the murmur of their own sleeping families through the thick walls, but at this hour, an absolute stillness reigns. The air is cool and smells faintly of dust, clay, and the lingering, sweet ghost of yesterday's incense that has seeped into the very plaster of the walls. You don't need a lamp. Your hands know the way. You find the coarse linen of your sleeping tunic, pulling it over your head as you move towards a small alcove. Here sits a clay basin and a jug of water. This is the first purification. You pour some water into the basin. It is shockingly cold. You rinse your mouth with it, swishing it around, the water tasting of the clay jug it was stored in. You must be pure, inside and out. The words you will speak later today cannot pass through an unclean mouth. You spit the water into a separate bowl. Then you cup your hands, dipping them into the basin and splashing the cold water onto your face, wiping the sleep from your eyes. Now comes the part of the routine that is most essential and, in some ways, most arduous: the complete removal of your hair. To serve the god, to enter the most sacred spaces, you must be a blank slate, free from the untidiness of the mortal world. Hair, a sign of the wild, of the animal, has no place in the presence of the divine. You pick up your razor. It's not a sleek, multi-bladed cartridge from the future. It's a small, leaf-shaped piece of polished bronze, its edge painstakingly sharpened on a wet stone. Some of the older priests still prefer flint, swearing it holds a better edge, but you have grown accustomed to the weight of the metal. There is no shaving cream, no hot towel to soften the skin. There is only cold water and a steady hand. You begin with your head, scraping away the fine stubble that has grown since yesterday's shave. The sound is a quiet, rhythmic rasp, the bronze whispering against your scalp. You have done this thousands of times. You know the contours of your own skull, the small bumps and ridges to navigate with care. Still, a moment of inattention can easily lead to a small nick, a bead of blood that would render you impure for the day's most holy tasks. It is a slow, meditative process, a physical discipline that focuses the mind. You move from your scalp to your face, then to your chest, your arms, your legs. Every last hair must go. You are shedding your earthly identity, preparing to become a vessel, a clean and anonymous servant. Historians will one day call you a Wab priest, literally, a pure one. And this is where that purity begins. Once the shaving is complete, you proceed to a dedicated chamber for the second, more significant purification. Here, other priests are beginning to stir, their movements as silent and purposeful as your own. They are shadows in the pre-dawn gloom, their bald heads gleaming faintly in the light of a single, flickering oil lamp. The chamber contains several stone basins filled with water. This isn't just any water. It was carried yesterday from the temple's sacred lake, a large, man-made pool lined with stone. That lake is a symbol of the new, the primeval waters from which all of creation emerged at the beginning of time. To wash in it is to symbolically return to the moment of creation, to be reborn fresh and pure. The irony, of which you are blissfully unaware, is that this sacred water, sitting in the open Egyptian air, is likely teeming with microscopic life that would horrify a modern physician. Your pursuit of spiritual cleanliness is, by another standard, a dive into a bacterial soup. 2 junior priests attend to you. They pour the consecrated water over your head, your shoulders, your body, while chanting specific, low-toned phrases. The water is bracingly cold, and you clench your teeth to keep from shivering. It runs in rivulets over your freshly shaved skin. They hand you a small lump of natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture which you use to scrub your skin. It is abrasive and drying, the ancient world's version of soap, and it leaves your skin feeling tight and scoured. Finally, you rinse one last time. Stepping out of the washing area, you are handed your uniform. It is not made of wool, which is an animal product and therefore considered impure. It is a kilt of fine, clean, almost translucent white linen. Another linen sash is draped over your shoulders. The fabric is light, airy, and a little stiff. You are now dressed. You are now pure. You are ready. You have transformed from a man who sleeps and dreams into an instrument of cosmic order. Your personal identity has been washed, scraped, and scrubbed away. For the next 12 hours, you belong to the god. Your skin still feels tight and slightly raw from the natron scrub, a constant physical reminder of your new state. You step out from the covered purification area into the open air of the temple courtyard. The world is no longer black, but a deep, bruised purple. The stars, which were brilliant just an hour ago, are beginning to fade as the first, Faintest hint of dawn bleeds over the eastern horizon. The air is thin and cold, and a slight breeze raises goosebumps on your arms. You adjust the fine linen sash on your shoulder, the material crisp against your skin. Other priests emerge from the shadows, their bare feet making soft, scuffing sounds on the stone pavement. No one speaks. No one even makes eye contact. This is a time for inner focus, a shared, unspoken understanding that words are inadequate for the journey you are about to begin. You find your place in the forming line. It is always the same place. Your rank determines your position with unshakable certainty. Ahead of you are the senior priests, men who have walked this path for decades. Behind you are others of similar standing. The novices and junior members are at the very end. The line is a living diagram of the temple hierarchy, a social structure made manifest in physical space. You all look nearly identical in your stark white kilts and shaven heads, a uniform of anonymity. And yet, everyone knows their exact place. To stand in the wrong spot would be an unthinkable breach of protocol, a jarring note in a symphony of perfect order. The procession begins. A senior priest at the head of the line takes the first step, and you all follow in unison. The movement is not a march. It is a slow, gliding walk. The rhythm is hypnotic, ingrained in your muscle memory. Your bare feet leave the smooth, paved stones of the priest's quarters and meet the hard-packed earth of the path leading out of this secluded area. The ground is cold and uneven beneath your soles. You must be mindful of every step, feeling for loose rocks or sharp-edged pottery shards in the dim light. There is no modern convenience of a paved sidewalk with streetlights. Your commute is a tactile experience, demanding your full attention. The silence is profound, broken only by the whisper of linen and the soft padding of dozens of bare feet on the dirt. You pass through a small gate and emerge into the sleeping town that huddles just outside the main temple's outer walls. Here, the smells change. The clean, sacred scent of the inner complex gives way to the smells of mundane life. You catch the faint, savory aroma of bread from a baker who has risen even earlier than you, his ovens already radiating heat into the cool air. It's a smell of hearth and home, a world you have temporarily left behind. The path winds between the dark shapes of mud brick houses. A dog barks once, a lonely sound that is quickly shushed. From an open window, you hear the fretful cry of a baby. These are the sounds of the very people you serve, the mortals whose lives are governed by the cosmic stability you help maintain. They sleep on, trusting that the sun will rise, that the river will flood, that the gods are content. They have no idea of the meticulous, unceasing work that this trust is built upon. You and your silent cohort are a ghostly river of white flowing through the dark, quiet streets. A few early risers might see you pass, but they would lower their eyes in respect, perhaps whispering a prayer. To them, you are not just a man walking to work. You are a holy instrument, a conduit for the divine. They don't know that your left foot is a little sore from where you stepped on a sharp pebble yesterday, or that you're mentally running through the complex sequence of offerings for the morning ritual, terrified of making a mistake. They see the symbol, not the person, and in a way they are right. You have temporarily ceased to be a person. This is a key part of your service. Your physical state must be perfect, or as near to it as possible. A persistent limp, a disfiguring scar, or even a missing tooth could see you reassigned to the temple's administrative wing, forever barred from the inner sanctuary. Scholars might debate the theological nuances, but the core idea is simple. A perfect God requires a perfect servant. You are a vessel, and that vessel cannot be cracked. The pressure to maintain this physical flawlessness is immense, a quiet anxiety that hums beneath the surface of your solemn duties. The path begins to incline slightly as you approach the temple proper. The sheer scale of it becomes apparent. Ahead, the massive stone gateway, the first pylon, looms against the lightening sky. It is a man-made mountain, a cliff face carved with images of the pharaoh smiting the enemies of Egypt. It is designed to awe, to diminish the individual and emphasize the power of the gods and the state. Archaeologists in the distant future will try to reconstruct your exact path, tracing the worn hollows in the stone thresholds to understand the flow of traffic in and out of these sacred precincts. But they can only guess at the feeling of walking it every single day. They can't replicate the feeling of the cold air, the weight of the silence, or the sense of profound purpose that fills you as you approach this portal between the mortal and the divine. Your line of silent, white-clad priests coils towards the smaller side entrance reserved for the priesthood. You pass colossal statues of seated gods, their stone faces impassive and ancient in the growing light. They have seen this procession every morning for centuries. They watched your predecessors walk this same path, and they will watch your successors long after you are gone. This thought is not intimidating, it is comforting. You are a single, flawless bead on an eternal string, a part of something vast and unending. Your personal anxieties and discomforts are fleeting, insignificant in the face of this monumental continuity. You have walked your silent commute, a journey from your personal self to your divine role. You have arrived at the doorstep of the God. The real work is about to begin. The procession halts before a modest wooden door set into the massive mud brick wall that encircles the temple's most sacred core. This isn't the grand public entrance. It's your private gateway, the employee entrance to the divine. The air here seems to hum with a different energy, a palpable quiet that feels heavier than the silence of the town. You stand at the edge of the Teminos, the sacred enclosure, and the mundane world falls away completely. The smells of baking bread and sleeping humanity are gone, replaced by the cool, mineral scent of stone, and the faint, ever-present aroma of old incense that has impregnated the very air. A senior priest, the one designated with this specific honor for the day, steps forward. He holds a small, lit oil lamp, its single flame casting long, dancing shadows that make the familiar surroundings seem alien and alive. He approaches the door to the inner sanctuary, the naos. This door is not locked with a complex metal mechanism. Its security is far more symbolic and, in its own way, more potent. A simple wooden bolt holds it shut and wrapped around the two knobs, one on the door, one on the frame, is a cord of fresh papyrus. This cord is cinched tight and then sealed with a lump of wet clay, into which has been pressed a sacred seal. The seal might bear the image of the god within, or the cartouche of the reigning pharaoh. It is a sign of inviolability. Breaking this seal is the first official act of the day. It is a moment of immense ritual significance. You and the other priests watch in absolute stillness. The priest with the lamp holds it close to the door. He murmurs a sequence of words, a short hymn acknowledging the sanctity of the space and asking for permission to enter. The words are ancient, their exact meaning perhaps only partially understood even by him, but the cadence and tone are what matter. It is a formula, a sonic key. Then, with a deliberate, precise movement, he reaches out with one finger and breaks the small, dried clay seal. The sound is a tiny, dry crack, yet it echoes in the profound silence like a thunderclap. It signifies that the protective ward of the night has been lifted, that the barrier between the human and the divine is about to be crossed. He carefully unwinds the papyrus cord and slides back the simple wooden bolt. The sound of the wood scraping in its channel is a low groan, the sound of the god's house stirring from sleep. The heavy wooden door swings inward, opening into a darkness that seems deeper and more absolute than the pre-dawn gloom you just left. A cool, still air flows out, carrying with it a concentrated burst of fragrance. Myrrh, frankincense, dried flowers, and something else. Something ancient and metallic and uniquely sacred. It is the section God's own breath. You do not all flood into the sanctuary. The hierarchy reasserts itself once more. Only a three you and your fellow priests file through the narrow side gate, leaving select few. The highest-ranking priests on duty for the day are permitted to enter the naos itself. You are one of them. It is the culmination of years, even decades of service, study, and proven the nascent, waking world behind. The moment you cross the threshold, the acoustics change. The vast, open space of the first courtyard swallows all sound. The soft padding of your feet is absorbed by the sheer scale of the stone enclosure purity. To step across this threshold is the highest honor. Your heart, despite the calm and detached exterior you project, beats a little. The air here feels different, still, heavy, and charged with latent power. You are now inside the god's home faster. This is not rote work. It is a communion. Historians will later argue about the precise number of priests, allowed a fortress of faith, built to withstand the chaos of the outside universe. The sky above is framed by the tops of towering inside the innermost shrine, a detail lost to the fragmented records. But for you, in this moment, the number is 4 columns, their capitals shaped like papyrus buds or open lotus flowers, a stone garden reaching for the heavens. The first, you and 3 others. You step over the high threshold, leaving the pale, nascent light of morning behind. You rays of the true dawn are now striking the very tops of these pillars, turning the pale stone a warm, gentle pink, but are immediately enveloped in a profound darkness and a profound silence. The heavy door is closed behind you, shutting out the world down here at ground level. You are still in deep shadow. Your silent procession does not stop. You move. For a moment, you are blind, your eyes struggling to adjust. The only light comes from the small, handheld with purpose across the first great courtyard, a space where, later in the day, the public might be allowed for certain festivals. You pass through a second pylon, smaller than the first but no less imposing. and enter the hypostyle hall lamp carried by the lead priest. Its flame seems to burn brighter in here, its light absorbed by the stone walls, creating a small, intimate bubble of warmth and visibility in an ocean of black. Your feet, bare and sensitive, feel. Here, the world changes entirely. The light from the sky is almost completely extinguished, filtered through small clear-story windows high the texture of the floor change. It is no longer rough-hewn pavement but polished alabaster, smooth and cold above. You are plunged into a forest of stone. Dozens of colossal columns, thick as ancient trees, rise up as ice. The room is small, intimate. This is not a grand hall for public worship. It is a bedroom. Into the gloom. Their shafts are covered in carved hieroglyphs and painted scenes, stories of gods and kings that you are standing in the gods' private chambers. The walls are covered in painted reliefs, scenes of offerings and rituals have studied since you were a boy. In the deep shadows, the figures seem to move, to watch you pass. The very acts you are about to perform. In the dim, flickering light, the figures on the walls seem to air is cool and musty, smelling of old stone, bats, and the faint, lingering perfume of millennia of burnt shift and move, ghostly participants in your ceremony. At the far end of the small chamber stands the shrine itself. It is an incense. The silence in this hall is even deeper, a heavy blanket that presses in on you. The only sound is the nearly tall, cabinet-like structure made of gilded wood. Its doors are closed, also held fast by a cord and an inaudible whisper of your own breath. You continue your solemn walk, a line of pale ghosts weaving through the pet clay seal. This is the final barrier. Inside this gilded box dwells the god, not a symbol of the god-reified forest. Finally, you arrive at your destination. A tall wooden door set into a stone wall at the far end, not a representation, but the god's physical manifestation on earth, the cult statue. The lead priest approaches the shrine. Of the hall, this is it, the entrance to the naos, the sanctuary, the most sacred and restricted. He performs another, more elaborate ritual of purification, sprinkling water from a special vessel and wafting incense from a small sea place in the entire temple complex, and perhaps the entire world. This is the god's bedroom. Behind this door rests censer. The smoke from the incense curls in the still air, thick with the scent of sacred resins. It is a cleansing agent. The cult statue, the physical vessel in which the spirit of the great god resides. Only a handful of you are, driving away any lingering impurities or malevolent spirits of the night. You and the other two priests accompanying him begin a permitted to go further. Your specific rank as a Wab priest grants you this immense privilege and terrifying responsibility. The low chant, a hymn of praise and awakening. Your voices, low and resonant, fill the small stone room. The other priests of lower ranks peel off, their duties lying in the ancillary chapels and offering halls. Your small group, the sound seeming to press in on you from all sides. It's a sound that no common person has ever heard. A senior officiant for the day halts before the door. The door itself is simple, made of dark, heavy cedar wood, secret melody for the god alone. There's no Yelp review for this performance, no audience to applaud. the only measure imported from the distant mountains of Lebanon. But what is most important is the lock. It's not a lock of metal and keys of success, is the continued stability of the cosmos. No pressure. The lead priest breaks the second seal on the shrines. It is a rope, tied with a specific complex knot and sealed with a lump of wet clay. Yesterday doors. He unfastens the bolt. The moment is here. The god is about to be revealed. With the evening after the god was put to bed, the officiating priest pressed the temple's official seal into that clay. The seal final, whispered incantation. He pulls the small golden doors open. Your breath catches in your throat. An involuntary reaction's impression is a clear, sharp image of the god and the temple's insignia. It is a sign that you have every single time. There, standing in the deepest recess of the shrine, is the statue. It is small, the room is secure, that nothing has disturbed the deity during its nightly journey through the underworld. Your superior, the high, perhaps only a cubit high, fashioned from gold, lapis lazuli, and other precious materials. Its eyes, inlaid priest for this month's rotation, steps forward. He is an old man, his shaven head covered in the fine wrinkles of age. His hands, however, are rock steady. He examines the seal in the flickering light of with polished obsidian, seem to stare right through you. In the wavering lamplight, it seems impossibly alive, radiating a single lamp held by an acolyte. He scrutinizes it for any sign of tampering, any crack or chip that would a palpable aura of power and immense, ancient stillness. You have broken the seal. You have unlocked the sacred. You now stand in the presence of your God, and your most intimate work is set to begin. The small, gilded doors of the shrine swing open, and a profound silence falls over your small group. The chanting ceases. The air itself seems to hold its breath. In the flickering lamplight, the cult statue is revealed. It is not a colossal monument like the ones in the outer courtyards. It is small, perhaps only as tall as your forearm, but it radiates an intensity that fills the small chamber. Fashioned from gleaming gold, its skin represents the imperishable flesh of the gods. Its hair, a traditional wig, is carved from deep blue lapis lazuli, a stone rarer and more valuable than gold, imported from distant lands beyond the desert. Its eyes are inlaid with brilliant white alabaster and pupils of polished black obsidian, giving it a piercing, lifelike gaze that seems to look right through you, into the very core of your being. This is the central mystery, the core belief upon which the entire temple, and in many ways the entire kingdom, is built. This is not just a symbol. The priests believe with an unshakable certainty that the divine spirit, the Ba of the god, inhabits this physical form. You are not looking at a statue. You are looking at your God. And it has just spent the night traveling through the dangerous, chaotic realm of the underworld, fighting the forces of darkness to ensure that the sun could rise again. Your first duty is to welcome it back to the world of the living and tend to its needs. It is an intimate, personal, and profoundly sacred morning routine. The senior priest makes a gesture of profound reverence, bowing low before the shrine. Then, with movements that are slow, deliberate, and have been practiced to the point of instinct, he reaches in and carefully lifts the statue from its pedestal. It is heavy, solid, the weight of precious metal and divine power in his hands. You step forward, holding a shallow basin of consecrated water from the sacred lake. Another priest stands ready with fine linen cloths. This is the god's morning wash. The senior priest gently holds the statue over the basin, while you pour a thin stream of the purified water over its golden limbs. The water trickles over the cool metal, catching the lamplight. As you do this, you recite the prescribed texts for the ritual, your voice a low, steady hum in the enclosed space. The words you speak are part of the opening of the mouth ceremony, a powerful ritual intended to animate the statue and allow it to see, hear, speak, and eat. I have cleansed you with the water of the primeval ocean, you might murmur, so that you may be pure. Your mouth is the mouth of a calf on the day of its birth. You are not just washing a physical object. You are mystically invigorating the senses of a deity. The idea that a priest would speak of a powerful god's mouth as that of a newborn calf seems almost comically disrespectful to a modern mind. But to you, it is a statement of ultimate purity and newness. Once the washing is complete, the statue is carefully dried with the softest linen. Every drop of water is wiped away. Then comes the anointing. The third priest in your group presents a collection of small, sealed alabaster jars. Each contains a different sacred oil or perfume. These are not common fragrances. They are complex blends, their recipes a closely guarded secret of the temple workshops, known as the House of Life. One by one, the senior priest unseals a jar, dips his finger into the fragrant unguent, and anoints the statue. He touches the oil to its forehead, its shoulders, its joints. The air in the small chamber becomes thick with the scent of myrrh, frankincense, lily, and other exotic botanicals. This is not just divine deodorant. It is a way of sealing the god's body in a protective, fragrant layer, pleasing its senses and reinforcing its divine status. Now it is time to dress the god. You present a tray laid with miniature garments. These are not just scraps of cloth. They are meticulously crafted kilts, tunics, and sashes made from the finest, most brilliantly white linen, some interwoven with threads of pure gold. They are miniature versions of the clothing a pharaoh might wear. The senior priest, with the careful touch of a valet, removes yesterday's garments and dresses the statue in a fresh set for the new day. Each piece of clothing has its own prayer, its own significance. As he places a miniature golden collar, a wesek, around its neck, he might recite a phrase promising it dominion over all it surveys. The final act of the dressing is the presentation of the regalia, a tiny crook and flail, symbols of kingship, a selection of divine crowns, each specific to the god's particular attributes or the festival of the day. Today is an ordinary day, so the god receives its standard headdress. It is placed carefully upon the lapis lazuli wig. Now the god is awake, clean, anointed, dressed, and ready to face the day. The statue is then carefully placed back onto its pedestal within the gilded shrine. The transformation is complete. The small, inert object of metal and stone is now a fully activated vessel of cosmic power, its gaze commanding, its presence overwhelming. You and your fellow priests take a step back, bowing in unison. You can feel the shift in the room's atmosphere. The ritual has worked. The god is awake and present. The boundary between the earthly and the divine has been successfully managed. You have performed your most crucial function. While the pharaoh fights the physical enemies of Egypt on the battlefield, you have just won a spiritual battle, ensuring the god is content and the fundamental order of the universe, the concept of man, is upheld for another day. It is a moment of quiet triumph, felt not as a surge of emotion but as a deep, resonant hum of everything being in its right and proper place. The god is in its shrine, the sun is rising in the sky, and all is well. For now. But the god is also hungry, and its breakfast is waiting. Having awakened and prepared the god, your next immediate responsibility is to provide it with sustenance. The deity, having been mystically invigorated, is now capable of consuming a meal, and it expects a feast worthy of its status. This is not a symbolic gesture with a crumb of bread and a drop of wine. This is a full-scale, elaborate catering service for a divine client, and the menu is extensive. While you were busy with the intimate rituals in the sanctuary, other teams of priests and temple workers were already in motion, preparing the first of several daily offerings. You leave the inner sanctum, carefully closing the gilded shrine doors but not sealing them, as the god is now awake and accessible. You back out of the chamber, never turning your back on the shrine, your movements slow and respectful. In the slightly larger antechamber, a grand spread is laid out on a low offering table placed before the entrance to the god's private room. The sight and smell are almost overwhelming after the stark simplicity of the sanctuary. The flickering lamplight illuminates a lavish banquet, a testament to the temple's immense wealth and organizational power. There are dozens of conical loaves of white bread, their shapes specific to ritual use, baked just hours ago in the temple bakeries. The air is heavy with their warm, yeasty scent, a smell that contrasts sharply with the sacred incense. Alongside the bread are platters piled high with cakes sweetened with honey and dates, some shaped into intricate forms of animals or sacred symbols. There are bowls of figs, grapes, and dates, glistening as if freshly picked. The centerpiece of the offering is often a haunch of roasted beef or a whole trussed goose, its skin glistening with fat, the rich, savory aroma mingling with everything else. The sizzle and scent of roasted meat feels almost profane in this holy space, a visceral reminder of the earthly sustenance required even by the gods. Historians often note that the sheer quantity of food dedicated to the temples was a significant part of the entire Egyptian economy, a divine stimulus package that kept farms and bakeries in business. Flanking the food are vessels of drink. There are tall ceramic jars of beer, the staple beverage of Egypt, its brew thick and cloudy. There are also jugs of wine, a more luxurious drink, its container stoppered with a clay seal stamped with the vintage and vineyard of origin, many of which are owned by the temple itself. There are even bowls of fresh milk. It is a feast that would beggar a wealthy noble, and it is presented here, in a dark stone room, for a god that will not physically eat a single bite. Your role now shifts from that of a personal valet to a master of ceremonies. With the senior priest leading, you perform the ritual of presentation. You approach the offering table and one by one, you present each item to the god, who remains unseen in the chamber behind you. You raise a loaf of bread, chanting the formulaic words. Take to yourself this your white bread, which the eye of Horus has made sound. You elevate a jug of beer, murmuring, take this beer, that your heart may be refreshed. Each item has its own specific utterance, a litany you have long since committed to memory. You are not just placing food on a table, you are performing a magical transference. You are converting the physical substance of the food into a spiritual essence, a divine energy that the god can absorb and metabolize. The quirky tidbit that modern audiences often miss is that the best cuts of meat were believed to be the god's favorites, meaning the temple butchery was a high-stakes operation. A poorly butchered joint wasn't just bad service, it was a cosmic insult. The most potent part of the ritual involves a special instrument called a sekhi. It's a staff, often shaped like a human arm, with which you point at each food item. This gesture, accompanied by the correct words, is what truly activates the offering, sending its spiritual counterpart through the sealed door and into the presence of the god. The smoke from a censer of burning incense is also wafted over the food, further purifying it and carrying its essence inward. The whole ceremony is a complex piece of theological theater, designed to bridge the gap between the material and the spiritual. For what feels like a long time, you stand in the presence of this feast, chanting, gesturing, and filling the chamber with smoke and sacred words. You must allow the god time to consume the spiritual essence of the meal. The silence that follows the chanting is thick with expectation. You stand perfectly still, your eyes downcast, waiting. There is no sign, no sound from within the shrine to indicate the god is pleased. Your faith and your adherence to the correct procedure are the only guarantees you have that the offering has been accepted. Then, once a suitable amount of time has passed, the ritual of reversion of offerings begins. This is, in many ways, the most practical part of the entire affair. The god has taken what it needs, the divine essence. The physical food, however, remains. To let it go to waste would be unthinkable. It is now imbued with a secondary holiness, having been in the presence of the god. The senior priest declares that the god is satisfied and has given the leftovers, the WDBW, back to its servants. This is your breakfast. With a new set of chants, you and the other priests clear the offering table. The food is divided with meticulous care according to rank. The senior priests receive the best cuts of meat, the finest cakes, and the wine. The portions are still generous as they trickle down to priests of your standing. Even the lowest-ranking temple workers, the cleaners and carriers, will receive a share of the bread and beer. Nothing is wasted. This system, known as the divine food cycle, is what feeds the entire temple staff. It's a brilliant piece of celestial economics. You work for the god is paid in offerings by the state and private donors, and the god pays you in the form of this sanctified food. You take your allotted portion, wrapping it in a linen cloth. The warm, greasy weight of the roasted meat and the solid heft of the bread are a stark contrast to the ethereal rituals you just performed. After hours of purification, chanting, and spiritual focus, you finally get to eat. Your stomach rumbles, a very human, very mundane counterpoint to the divine mysteries you orchestrate. Your portion of the reverted offerings is a tangible reward for the morning's intense spiritual labor. You carry the cloth-wrapped bundle of bread and roasted meat away from the sacred core of the temple. The sun is now fully risen, casting sharp, angular shadows across the courtyards. The temple complex is coming alive with a different kind of energy. The solemn, pre-dawn hush has been replaced by the low hum of organized industry. You move from the realm of pure ritual back into the world of administration, a transition that is just as critical to the temple's function as the awakening of the god. Your destination is an office, a simple room in a sprawling block of mud brick buildings that serves as the temple's administrative heart. There is no grand desk or ergonomic chair. You might sit on a low stool at a wooden table, or perhaps even cross-legged on a reed mat on the floor. Here, you finally break your fast. You unwrap the cloth. The bread is dense and slightly gritty, not from poor hygiene, but from the fine particles of sand and stone that wear off the grinding mills. It's an unavoidable feature of almost every loaf of bread in Egypt, a constant, abrasive presence in your diet that will slowly wear down your teeth over the course of your life. The roasted goose is rich and delicious, its flavor heightened by the knowledge of its divine origin. You eat quickly, mindfully. This is not a leisurely brunch. It is fuel for the next phase of your duties. As a priest of your standing, you are not just a ritualist. You are a manager. The temple is not merely a place of worship. It is one of the most powerful economic engines in the entire kingdom, a massive corporation with the god as its CEO. It owns vast tracts of agricultural land stretching for miles along the Nile. It controls granaries, weaving workshops, bakeries, breweries, and butcheries. It operates fleets of boats to transport goods and maintains its own corps of craftsmen, builders, and scribes. All of this earthly enterprise must be meticulously managed, and that is a key part of your job. A junior scribe approaches you with a stack of papyrus scrolls and a wooden palette holding cakes of black and red ink and a set of reed brushes. The scrolls are reports from the temple's various land holdings. Your task for the next few hours is to review them. You unroll the first scroll. It's an inventory from a granary 50 miles upriver, a spidery line of hieratic script. The cursive, day-to-day version of the more formal hieroglyphs details the amount of barley and emmer wheat brought in from the recent harvest. It lists the amounts dispersed to the temple bakers and brewers, the portions paid out as wages to farm workers, and the surplus held in storage. Your job is to check the numbers. You don't have a calculator or a spreadsheet. You perform the calculations in your head or by making notations on a spare shard of pottery, a cheap and disposable scratch pad known as an ostracon. The Egyptian numbering system is functional but cumbersome, and the math can be surprisingly complex. You need to account for spoilage, rodent infestation, and the scribal rounding errors that sometimes seem to benefit the granary manager a little too conveniently. It's the ancient equivalent of auditing the books, and it requires intense focus. There's a certain irony in the fact that you spent the dawn communing with the Eternal, and now you're bogged down in a dispute over 15 missing sacks of grain. The next scroll is a report from a temple-owned cattle ranch. It lists births, deaths, and the number of animals selected for the offering rituals. You cross-reference this with the reports from the temple butchers to ensure they match. A discrepancy could mean anything from simple incompetence to outright theft, both of which require investigation. Another scroll details the production of linen from the temples, flax farms, and weaving workshops. It specifies the quality of the linen, from the coarse fabric used for workers' kilts to the almost transparent royal linen required for the gods' garments and the burial shrouds of nobles. You verify the production quotas and the distribution records. This is the unglamorous reality of your holy life. For every moment spent in the divine presence, there are hours spent hunched over documents, tracking commodities and balancing accounts. Historians poring over these very same temple records thousands of years later will be able to reconstruct the Egyptian economy with astonishing detail. But they may miss the human element. The eye strain from reading script in the dim light of a doorway, the frustration of tracking a missing shipment of beer, the subtle politics of dealing with an underperforming estate manager who happens to be the high priest's nephew. There are no online reviews to warn you about this part of the job. Your work is occasionally interrupted. A master craftsman from the temple workshop arrives to consult with you about the procurement of raw materials. He needs a specific quantity of acacia wood to construct a new sacred bark, the ceremonial boat used to carry the god in processions, and several blocks of high-quality limestone for a new relief being carved in one of the outer chapels. It is your job to approve the request and issue a dispatch order to the temple's quartermaster. You must balance the project's needs against the temple's budget and existing inventory. Later, a delegation of tenant farmers from a temple estate arrives. They have a grievance. The new irrigation canal promised to them has been delayed, and their crop yields will suffer. They approach you with deference and respect, but also with a clear expectation of justice. You are the god's representative. You listen to their petition, your face a mask of solemn consideration. You promise to look into the matter, making a note to dispatch a junior priest to investigate the overseer responsible for the canal project. You are a landowner, a bureaucrat, a judge, and a supply chain manager, all under the umbrella of your priestly duties. This immense earthly power and wealth, concentrated in the hands of the priesthood, was a recurring source of tension with the pharaoh's central government, a political reality that shaped much of Egyptian history. Your careful management is not just about keeping the temple running. It's about maintaining a delicate balance of power. Your work is meticulous, vital, and largely invisible, ensuring the divine household on earth runs as smoothly and predictably as the sun's journey across the sky. After hours spent immersed in the pragmatic world of granary receipts and linen production, your duties pivot once again. You move from the cloistered administrative offices back out into the more public-facing areas of the temple complex. The sun is now high in the sky, beating down on the stone plazas. The heat is intense, radiating up from the paving stones in shimmering waves. The air is no longer still but filled with the low murmur of human activity. While you were balancing the books, the outer courtyards of the temple have opened to the public. This is another critical function of your role. You are not just a servant to the god in its sanctuary or a manager of its assets. You are also the primary intermediary between the divine and the general populace. The common people of Egypt, the farmers, the craftsmen, the soldiers, cannot enter the sacred heart of the temple. They will never see the cult statue or witness the morning rituals. Their access to the god is indirect, and it flows through you. Your destination is a specific location in one of the outer courts, often near the front pylon gate, a designated space where the divine meets the mundane. Here a crowd has gathered. These are not tourists or casual visitors. They are people with problems, with questions, with hopes and fears, and they have come to the god's house seeking answers. They bring small offerings, a simple loaf of bread, a handful of dates, a carved wooden amulet, as a sign of their piety and a small payment for your services. Your role is that of a divine consultant, an oracle, a dream interpreter. You take your seat in a shaded portico, a position of authority, while the petitioners wait their turn to approach you. The first person to come before you is a woman, her face etched with worry. Her husband, a soldier, is part of a campaign in distant Nubia, and she has not had word from him in months. She had a dream last night, a confusing jumble of images involving a crocodile and a flowering lotus. She describes it to you in a hushed, anxious voice, desperate for you to find meaning in it. You listen patiently, your expression serene and attentive. You have spent years studying in the House of Life, reading the ancient dream books, vast catalogs of symbols and their prescribed interpretations. A crocodile might signify a powerful enemy or a danger from the river. A lotus is a symbol of rebirth and creation. Your task is to weave these symbols into a coherent, comforting, and suitably ambiguous message. You cannot give her a concrete yes or no. That is not how divine communication works. Instead, you couch your interpretation in careful theological language. The crocodile signifies the dangers your husband faces in the foreign lands. You explain, your voice calm and reassuring. But the blooming lotus is a powerful sign from the god. It shows that new life and joy will emerge from this period of struggle. You must continue to make offerings and trust in the god's protection. You have given her hope, reinforced her faith in the system, and reminded her of her religious obligations. She thanks you profusely, leaving her small offering of a jug of beer, and departs with a lighter step. Next comes a merchant. He is planning a risky trading expedition into the desert oases and wants to know if the venture will be prosperous. He doesn't have a dream to interpret, so he seeks a direct oracle. For this, a different method is used. Sometimes a special statue of the god, one different from the main cult statue, would be brought into the courtyard. The question would be posed, and the priests carrying the statue would cause it to dip forward for yes, or backward for no. The mechanics of how the priests coordinated this, whether through subtle, prearranged signals or a genuine belief that the god was moving their arms, is a matter of intense debate among scholars. Today, however, the process is simpler. 2 pottery shards are prepared, one with a yes symbol and one with a no. They are placed into a bag, After the merchant makes his donation, you say a prayer, reach into the bag without looking and pull one out. You present it to him. It is his answer. He may be thrilled or disappointed, but he accepts it as the will of the god. It's a divine coin toss, a sacred game of chance that provides a definitive answer to an uncertain future. This practice, while seeming simplistic, provided a vital psychological service, giving people the confidence to make difficult decisions in a world full of risks. So before this great story continues, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're enjoying our journey together. Your support means the world. Throughout the afternoon, a steady stream of people comes to you. A farmer asks for a blessing on his fields to ensure a good harvest. A young couple seeks a fertility charm. A man suffering from an undiagnosed illness describes his symptoms, and you provide him with a magical incantation to recite, along with a prescription for a poultice of herbs and honey prepared by the temple specialists. A fascinating blend of magic and early medicine. You are a doctor, a therapist, a career counselor, and a fortune teller, all rolled into one. You do not see this as trickery. You genuinely believe you are channeling the wisdom of the god, using your specialized training to interpret its will. Your pronouncements provide order, hope, and a sense of control in a world governed by floods, droughts, and disease. You are reinforcing the central message of your entire civilization, that the universe is not random or chaotic, but governed by divine principles, and that by following the correct rituals and appeals, one can live in harmony with that order. You are selling certainty, or at least the illusion of it, and in ancient Egypt, that was one of the most valuable commodities of all. As the afternoon wears on, the shadows lengthen, and the crowd begins to thin. Your public-facing duties are nearing their end, and soon, your focus must turn back inward, toward the god who is waiting for its evening meal. As the fierce midday heat begins to soften into the golden light of late afternoon, you are granted a respite from your public and administrative duties. The stream of petitioners has slowed to a trickle, and the ledgers are, for the moment, balanced. This period of relative quiet offers an opportunity for the most scholarly aspect of your priestly life. You leave the bustling outer courts and make your way to one of the most revered and mysterious parts of the temple complex, the Purunk, the House of Life. The House of Life is not a single, grand building like a modern library. It is a series of chambers, scriptoriums, and archives, often situated deep within the temple enclosure, accessible only to priests and scribes of a certain rank. The air inside is cool and still, smelling of old papyrus, ink, and the dry, sweet scent of knowledge itself. The light is dim, filtered through high, narrow window slits designed to keep out the bleaching glare of the sun. Shelves and niches are carved into the walls, filled with rolled papyrus scrolls, each one carefully labeled with a small clay tag indicating its contents. This is the intellectual heart of the temple, and arguably of the entire nation. You are here not merely to store knowledge, but to engage with it, to study, and to create. You take a seat on a low stool in a quiet alcove. Another priest is already there, hunched over a work table, painstakingly copying a medical text. The only sound is the faint, rhythmic scratch of his reed brush on the papyrus sheet. There's no idle chatter here, no collaborative brainstorming sessions. This is a place of deep, individual focus. It is the ancient world's quiet carol in a university library. Your own task today is one of study. You retrieve a scroll from its designated niche. It is a text on astronomy. Unrolling it carefully across your lap, you begin to read the columns of intricate hieratic script. This is not stargazing for poetic inspiration. This is a vital, practical science, inextricably linked to your religious duties. The Egyptian calendar, the timing of religious festivals, and the very orientation of the temples themselves are all based on the precise movements of the stars. The scroll you are reading maps the constellations, which the Egyptians saw as divine beings sailing across the sky in their celestial boats. It details the rising of specific stars, like the bright star Sirius, whose heliacal rising, its first appearance on the eastern horizon just before sunrise, heralded the annual, life-giving inundation of the Nile. Getting these calculations right is a matter of cosmic importance. Announcing a festival on the wrong day would be a grave offense to the gods and could bring misfortune upon the entire land. So you study the charts, cross-referencing them with observational logs kept by priests who spent their nights on the temple roof, tracking the movements of the heavens. It is a slow, painstaking process. You mentally check the calculations for the upcoming Festival of the Valley, a major public celebration, ensuring everything is aligned as it should be. The blend of what a modern person would call science and religion is seamless here. The movement of the stars is both a mathematical reality and a divine narrative, and you are fluent in both languages. The House of Life contains more than just astronomical and calendrical texts. It is a repository for every kind of knowledge deemed worthy of preservation. There are scrolls on medicine, containing surprisingly effective remedies for various ailments, alongside magical incantations to ward off the demons believed to cause them. There are architectural treatises with the plans for building temples and tombs. There are mathematical texts detailing methods for calculating land area and the volume of pyramids. And of course, there are the theological and mythological works, the great stories of creation, the tales of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, and the complex liturgies and hymns for every ritual you perform. One of the most important functions of the House of Life, and one you might be involved in, is the copying and preservation of these sacred texts. Papyrus is a durable material, but in the Egyptian climate, it is still vulnerable to moisture, insects, and simple wear and tear. Scribes in the Purank are constantly at work creating new copies of old, decaying scrolls. This is not a task for a simple clerk. The scribe must be a master of the hieroglyphic and hieratic scripts, and they must be absolutely precise. An error in copying a ritual text could render the entire ceremony ineffective, or worse, offensive to the god. This meticulous dedication to perfect replication is why some ancient Egyptian texts have survived for millennia, copied and recopied through generations of priests like you. But the House of Life is not just a library or a scriptorium. As its name implies, It is a place of creation. It is here that new religious texts might be composed, new hymns written to praise the god, or new magical spells formulated. Scholars still speculate about the creative autonomy of priests in this context. Were they free to compose new works, or were they primarily custodians of an unchanging tradition? The reality was likely a mixture of both. While the core rituals were immutable, the world changed. New pharaohs came to power, and new historical events needed to be incorporated into the theological framework. The House of Life was where that delicate work of theological innovation happened. Today, however, your work is more about maintenance than creation. Having confirmed the astronomical data, you move on to another task, reviewing a funerary text. A wealthy noble in the nearby town has died, and his family has paid the temple a handsome sum to prepare his Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and instructions to guide his soul safely through the underworld. It is your job to ensure the correct spells are included and that the deceased's name is written correctly in all the right places. One small mistake could leave his soul vulnerable to eternal torment. It is a responsibility you take with the utmost seriousness. The work is detailed, demanding, and utterly without glamour. Yet it is a cornerstone of your civilization's entire belief system about life, death, and eternity. You are a scholar, an archivist, and a guardian of the immortal words that hold your world together. The quiet, scholarly atmosphere of the House of Life gives way to a more dynamic, and sometimes frustrating, part of your afternoon. Your responsibilities extend not only to the gods and the dead, but also to the living future of the priesthood. You must ensure that the sacred knowledge you so carefully study and apply is passed on, intact and unchanged, to the next generation. You make your way to a training courtyard, another of the temple's many specialized zones. Here, the low hum of dedicated scholarship is replaced by the less than perfect sounds of learning. This is where the novices, the young boys and teenagers dedicated to the temple, receive their education. They are not all destined for the highest ranks. Some will become temple scribes, others artisans, and some will serve as the junior wab priests who perform the more menial, though still sacred, tasks. A handful show the aptitude and piety required to one day take on a role like yours. Your job is to instruct a small group of these aspiring priests, to shape them into worthy servants of the god. Today's lesson is on ritual chanting. The boys, their heads shaved just like yours, are gathered before you, dressed in simple linen kilts. They sit on the stone floor, their backs straight, trying to project an aura of solemnity that their youthful energy constantly threatens to undermine. You see in their faces a mixture of awe, ambition, and the simple boredom of any student forced to memorize difficult material. It's a relatable pain point across millennia. No matter the century, training the interns is always a challenge. You begin the lesson. The chant you are teaching them is for the evening offering ceremony. It is a complex piece with a specific rhythm, a precise series of tones, and words that are both ancient and potent. Getting it wrong is not like flubbing a line in a school play. It is a spiritual failure. You chant the first line, your voice low, resonant, and perfectly controlled. O great God who sets in the western horizon, receive this offering and be at peace. The melody is subtle, more of a structured recitation than a song, with notes rising and falling in a pattern established centuries ago. Then you gesture for them to repeat it. The sound they produce is not ideal. It is a cacophony of cracking adolescent voices. One boy starts too high, another forgets the second word, and a third is mumbling with a distinct lack of conviction. You hold up a hand and the sound dies away. You do not scold them harshly. Anger has little place in this sacred instruction. Instead, you adopt a tone of patient correction. No, no, you say calmly. The tone must descend at horizon. It is a reflection of the sun's own descent. And Kenneman, you address one of the mumblers, the gods cannot hear a whisper. The words have power, but only if they are projected with intent. Again, you repeat the line, exaggerating the tonal shift slightly so they can better grasp the pattern. They try again. This time it is better, but still flawed. One boy, a particularly bright student named Nakhet, gets it almost perfect, his clear voice a beacon in the unsteady chorus. You make a mental note of his progress. He shows promise. Another boy, however, seems to be struggling immensely. He looks frustrated, on the verge of giving up. The pressure on these boys is enormous. Failure to master these fundamentals could mean being relegated to a lifetime of administrative work, far from the sacred mysteries of the inner sanctuary. The process is slow and repetitive. Line by line, you build the chant. You make them recite it over and over again, correcting their posture, their breathing, their pronunciation. You explain the meaning behind the words, connecting the ritual to the grand cosmic narratives they have learned from the scrolls in the House of Life. You remind them that the god doesn't just hear the words, it feels the intention behind them. This is something that future historians, reading the transcribed texts, can never fully grasp, the sonic and emotional texture of the rituals. They have the sheet music, but they can never hear the orchestra. After the chanting, you move on to practical instruction. Today's topic is the correct way to handle ritual objects. You bring out a set of training equipment, simple clay versions of the expensive alabaster and golden vessels used in the actual ceremonies. You show them how to lift a libation jar, how to hold a censer without spilling the hot embers, how to present an offering tray with the correct posture of humility and grace. Your movements must be fluid, deliberate, you explain. There is no room for clumsiness in the house of the god. A dropped vessel is an omen of chaos. You have them practice, one by one. Nakhet, the promising student, moves with a natural grace, his hands steady. The struggling boy, however, is awkward. He nearly drops the practice censer and you have to steady his arm. You see a flicker of shame in his eyes. You pull him aside while the others continue to practice. The hands only follow the mind, you tell him quietly. Your mind is clouded with fear of failure. Empty it. Think only of the God. The vessel is not heavy if you know its purpose. Your role is not just as a teacher, but as a spiritual mentor. You are not just training them for a job. You are guiding them on a spiritual path. This aspect of your life is a profound responsibility. The continuity of your entire religious tradition rests on your ability to successfully transmit it. It is an unbroken chain of knowledge passed from master to student, generation after generation, stretching back into the mists of time. If you fail, if you allow the standards to slip, the chain breaks. The rituals would become hollow, their power diminished. It is this sacred duty that fuels your patience as you ask the boys, for the 10th time, to repeat the first line of the evening hymn. You listen again, and this time, the sound is closer to unison, a chorus of young voices reaching for the perfection that the God demands, and that you, their teacher, must tirelessly cultivate within them. The sun, which seemed to hang motionless in the sky for hours, now begins its final, swift descent toward the western horizon. A golden, almost syrupy light floods the temple complex, casting long, dramatic shadows from the colossal pillars and statues. The air cools, and a sense of closure begins to settle over the day's activities. The public has departed, the administrative offices are quiet, and the novices have been dismissed. Your focus returns once more to the temple's central purpose, the care of the god. The day began with a ritual of awakening. It must now end with a ritual of rest. You and the same small, high-ranking team of priests that performed the morning rites gather once again. You have undergone another purification, a less elaborate version than the pre-dawn cleansing, but essential nonetheless. You have washed your hands and face in consecrated water and put on a fresh, clean linen kilt. You must be pure to approach the god for the final time today. You retrace your steps from the morning, walking in silence through the now empty hypostyle hall, its forest of columns painted in warm hues by the dying light filtering through the clerestory windows. You arrive at the door to the god's sanctuary. The feeling is different from the morning's tense anticipation. A sense of peace, of completion, pervades the atmosphere. You enter the antechamber where the great offering was made. A second, smaller meal has already been laid out by junior priests, the god's dinner. It is less extravagant than the morning feast, perhaps with fewer meat dishes and more bread, fruit, and wine. The ritual of presenting this meal is a near-perfect echo of the morning ceremony. You raise each item, you recite the ancient words, and you use the sacred Sekhi staff to project its spiritual essence into the sanctuary where the god waits. The smoke from the incense coils in the still air, its scent mingling with the aromas of the food. You are essentially reversing the flow of energy. In the morning, you brought the god out of the chaos of the underworld and into the order of the day. Now, you are providing it with the sustenance and strength it needs to embark on its perilous nightly journey once more. This nightly voyage is not a peaceful sleep. According to your beliefs, the sun god Ra travels through the 12 hours of the night in his divine bark, facing down monstrous enemies like the great serpent Apep, who seeks to devour the sun and plunge the world into eternal darkness. Your rituals are not just putting a god to bed, they are arming it for battle. Once the god has had time to consume its evening meal, you enter the inner sanctum, the naos itself. The single lamp held by an acolyte casts its familiar, intimate glow on the gilded shrine. The statue stands within, a silent, powerful presence. The senior priest approaches and, with the same reverence as in the morning, begins the evening rituals, which are a careful and deliberate reversal of the morning's events. First, the regalia is removed. The crown, the crook and flail are taken from the statue and placed back in their silk-lined box. Then, the miniature garments are carefully unfastened and removed. You present a tray, and the tiny linen kilt and sash are folded and laid upon it. The god is now undressed, returned to its pure, essential form. Next comes the cleansing. But this is not a washing with water. It is a purification with incense. A special censer with glowing coals and potent resins is brought forward. The senior priest wafts the thick, fragrant smoke over the statue, enveloping it in a cleansing cloud. This is a symbolic removal of any impurity the god may have come into contact with during its day in the earthly realm. You stand by, reciting the appropriate hymns in a low, sonorous tone. The words speak of protection, of navigating the darkness, and of victory over chaos. You go to rest in the evening bark, you chant, and you rise in the morning bark. May your journey be peaceful. May your enemies fall before you. You are providing a verbal and spiritual shield for the god's journey. It's a cosmic lullaby and a battle hymn rolled into one, a strange but essential combination that underscores the dual nature of the night, a time of rest for mortals, but of intense struggle for the divine. After the censing is complete, the senior priest performs the final, critical action. He raises his hands and makes a gesture of farewell and protection toward the statue. Then, with great care, he pushes the small, gilded doors of the shrine closed. The sound of the doors shutting is soft, but it marks a definitive end. The god is now sealed away, prepared for its transition from this world to the next. The senior priest then fastens the simple bolt. A new cord of papyrus is brought forward, and he wraps it around the knobs, tying the specific, complex knot that secures it. Finally, you present him with a small, soft lump of wet clay. He presses it over the knot, flattening it with his thumb. Then he takes the temple's master seal, a carved stone or metal cylinder, and presses it firmly into the clay, leaving the sharp, clear impression of the god's insignia. The room is now secure. The seal is a potent magical and physical barrier, ensuring that no hostile force, spiritual or physical, can disturb the god during its vulnerable journey. The daily cycle is complete. You and your fellow priests back out of the sanctuary, your movements slow and deliberate. You close the heavy wooden door to the naos and seal it as well, repeating the process with a cord and another clay seal. You have locked and sealed the divine world away for the night. As you walk back out through the hypostyle hall, the last vestiges of daylight are gone. The temple is sinking back into the profound darkness and silence from which it emerged at dawn. Your most sacred work is done. You have successfully managed the cosmic timetable, a feat of ritual engineering that keeps the universe running. Now, for the first time in over 12 hours, your thoughts can finally turn toward home. Leaving the silent, sealed heart of the temple behind you feels like stepping from one world into another. The air outside the massive walls seems lighter, the sounds more mundane. You are no longer a cog in a cosmic machine, a pure vessel for ritual. You are simply a man walking home after a long day at work. Your bare feet tread the familiar path through the now darkened town, a route you walked in the opposite direction in the cold, pre-dawn gloom. The moon, a silver sliver in the sky, provides a pale light, illuminating the outlines of the mud brick houses. The sounds are different now than they were in the morning. The profound silence of sleep has been replaced by the low hum of evening life. From behind the walls of homes, you hear the murmur of conversations, the occasional laugh, the cry of a child being put to bed. The smell of cooking fires still hangs in the air, a mix of wood smoke and roasting vegetables. It's the scent of domesticity, a world away from the sacred myrrh and frankincense that have filled your senses all day. You walk past a small, local tavern, its doorway spilling a warm, yellow light onto the path. You hear the boisterous sounds of men drinking beer and playing games of senet, their voices loud and earthly. You, of course, do not stop. Your priestly vows demand a level of decorum and sobriety, especially when wearing your linen kilt. There are no Yelp reviews for this tavern's questionable stew, but the sounds of camaraderie are a potent reminder of a life of simple, secular pleasures that you have, in large part, forsaken. You reach the door to your own home, a modest dwelling provided by the temple administration. It is functionally identical to those of your neighbors, distinguished only by a small painted symbol on the lintel indicating your priestly rank. You lift the simple wooden latch and step inside. The contrast with the temple is immediate and profound. Where the temple is vast, stone, and eternal, your home is small, made of earth, and filled with the beautiful, untidy chaos of family life. Your wife greets you at the door. She is not a priestess, but her role in managing the household is just as vital to your ability to perform your duties. She takes the bundle of reverted offerings, your salary, that you carry, the leftover bread and cakes from the gods' evening meal. She will use this to supplement the family's diet. She has been busy all day, grinding grain, baking bread for the family's own consumption, weaving linen, and minding the children. Her hands smell of flour and smoke, a comforting, earthly perfume. Your two children, a boy of 8 and a girl of 5, run to greet you. They are not in awe of your holy status. To them, you are simply father. They grab your hands, chattering about their day. Your son proudly shows you a clay bird he molded, while your daughter recounts a dramatic story about a fight with the neighbor's cat. Their world is small, immediate, and wonderfully free of cosmic responsibilities. They don't know about the intricacies of the reversion of offerings or the astronomical calculations for the next festival. They just know their father is home. You shed the pristine white linen of your office for a simpler, coarser kilt of everyday wear. The transformation is complete. The Wab priest, the pure one, has dissolved, and in his place is a husband and father. You sit with your family for your own evening meal. It is a simple affair compared to the feast you serve the god. There is bread, of course, the gritty, ubiquitous bread, along with a stew of lentils and onions, and perhaps a small portion of the blessed meat you brought home. Your wife serves the beer, a weak household brew, not the strong, fine-quality beer from the temple cellars. As you eat, you listen to the news of the neighborhood, the concerns of your wife about the price of oil at the market. Your son struggles with learning his first hieratic signs. This is the stuff of real life, the texture of human existence that your grand, abstract work at the temple is meant to protect and sustain. It is a strange duality. You spend your days ensuring the sun will rise, and your evenings worrying about whether your son is doing his homework. Historians can reconstruct your temple duties from reliefs and texts, but this domestic scene, so universal and yet so personal, is often lost to the archaeological record. They can see the priest, but they often miss the man. After the meal, as your wife puts the children to bed, you might sit for a while on your flat rooftop, a common feature of Egyptian homes used as an extra living space in the cool evenings. You look up at the vast, star-dusted sky, but you are not looking at it with the eye of a temple astronomer now. You are not tracking the decans or calculating the movements of the planets. You are just a man, sitting in the quiet of the night, feeling the fatigue of a long day in your bones. You think about the malfunctioning irrigation canal the farmers petitioned you about, making a mental note to deal with the lazy overseer tomorrow. You worry about Nak, the promising novice, and wonder if he has the resilience to withstand the pressures of the priesthood. Your home life is a necessary anchor. It grounds you, reminds you of the human world your rituals serve. Without it, the abstract, repetitive nature of your duties could become overwhelming, the weight of cosmic responsibility too much to bear. Your family, your simple mud brick house, the taste of lentil stew, these are the things that make the grand theological structure real. They are the why behind the what. Your day started in the cold, dark, silent purity of a divine calling and ends in the warm, cluttered, noisy reality of a human family. Both are essential. Both are your life. And soon you will sleep, a deep, dreamless slumber, for you know that in just a few short hours, the internal clock will sound its silent alarm, and you will have to rise and become pure once more. Your normal, predictable routine, the rhythmic pulse of daily ritual, administrative work, and quiet home life, is occasionally punctuated by events of extraordinary scale and public spectacle. These are the great religious festivals, the times when the god ventures out from the seclusion of the sanctuary to show itself to the people. One of the most significant of these in your region is the beautiful Festival of the Valley. And today, after weeks of careful preparation, it has arrived. The energy in the temple complex and the surrounding town is entirely different. The usual solemnity is replaced by a palpable buzz of excitement and anticipation. The day did not begin with the usual quiet procession. Instead, the temple is thronged with dozens of extra priests, assistants, and workers, all rushing to complete the final preparations. The air is thick with the scent of massed floral arrangements, lotuses, cornflowers, and poppies that decorate every available surface, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the usual austere stone. The amount of food being prepared in the temple kitchens is staggering, enough to feed thousands of people who have flocked to the city for the celebration. Your role today is elevated and highly visible. You are not tucked away in an office or a dim sanctuary. You are part of the core team responsible for the god's public appearance. After the morning rituals, which are performed with even more solemnity and grandeur than usual, the true preparations begin. The small, precious cult statue is not the one that will be carried in the procession. It is too small, too sacred, and too valuable to be exposed to the public gaze. Instead, A larger, more robust processional statue is used. It is brought from its own special chapel and placed within a magnificent portable shrine, known as a sacred bark. This is not a simple boat. It is a masterpiece of temple craftsmanship, carved from the finest cedar and gilded with sheets of gleaming gold. Its prow and stern are decorated with the head of the god, often adorned with a solar disk and elaborate plumes. The shrine sits in the center of the boat, a miniature divine cabin, its doors sealed and veiled with fine linen. The entire structure rests on two long carrying poles. Your job, along with a select group of other high-ranking priests, is to be one of the bearers. It is an immense physical and spiritual honor. The moment arrives. The great doors of the temple pylon swing open. A hush falls over the massive crowd gathered outside, followed by a collective gasp, and then a roar of sound, music, singing, and cries of joyous praise. The procession emerges from the temple's comparative darkness into the brilliant Egyptian sunlight. At the head of the procession are incense bearers, swinging their censers and enveloping the path in clouds of fragrant smoke. They are followed by musicians, playing harps, lutes, flutes, and sistrums, the sacred rattles whose shimmering sound was thought to soothe the gods. Then comes the bark. You and the other priests hoist the heavy structure onto your shoulders. The weight is immense. The gilded wood and solid construction require you to brace yourself, to find a rhythm with your fellow bearers. Your shaven heads and identical white kilts create a vision of anonymous, unified service. The crowd parts before you, a human sea creating a wide avenue. People fall to their knees as the god passes. They weep, they sing, they shout praises. They hold up their children to catch a glimpse of the divine vessel. For them, this is the most direct contact they will ever have with their God. It is a moment of profound spiritual catharsis. The procession moves slowly, deliberately out of the temple complex and along a prepared route. You feel the sun beat down on your bare shoulders, the strain in your muscles, the sweat trickling down your back, but you feel no pain. You are carried along by the energy of the crowd and the supreme importance of your task. You are the legs of the god, the vehicle for its journey among mortals. The path leads from your temple on the east bank of the Nile, the land of the living, towards the river itself. At the riverbank, a great barge, a floating temple, awaits. Maneuvering the sacred bark up the gangplank and onto the deck of the barge is a feat of careful coordination. Once it is secured, the barge is pushed off into the current, towed by other boats with teams of oarsmen. As you float on the shimmering water of the Nile, the festival continues. Hymns are sung, offerings of flowers and food are cast into the river. The barge crosses from the east bank to the west bank, the land of the dead. The purpose of the beautiful festival of the valley is twofold. It is a celebration of the god, but it is also a communion with the blessed dead. The west bank is where the nobles and pharaohs are buried in their rock-cut tombs. The procession disembarks and proceeds into the Theban necropolis, the city of the dead. Here, the atmosphere changes. It is less a boisterous celebration and more a solemn pilgrimage. Families have gathered at the entrances to their ancestral tombs, where they have laid out banquets. They are having a feast with their departed relatives, and the passing of the god is meant to bless and magically reinvigorate the spirits of the deceased. You carry the bark along the dusty paths that wind between the tombs. You see families feasting, drinking, and celebrating in the courtyards of their funerary chapels. It is a uniquely Egyptian concept, a joyous picnic in a cemetery. It reflects their belief that the dead are not gone, but simply living in another plane, and that they can still participate in the great celebrations of life. The lines between life and death, between the human and the divine, become beautifully blurred on this day. Historians will marvel at this festival, seeing it as a vital social and religious event that bound the community together, linking the living with their ancestors and both with their God. As dusk approaches, the long procession reverses its course. You carry the god back to the river, back across the Nile, and back into the sanctuary of its temple. The physical exhaustion is immense. Your shoulders ache, your feet are sore and coated in dust. But as you help place the sacred bark back in its chapel, a profound sense of accomplishment washes over you. You have not just performed a ritual, you have helped to weave the very fabric of society, strengthening the bonds between the god and its people, the living and the dead. You have brought the divine out into the world and, in doing so, reaffirmed its power and its central place in the life of every single person who knelt as you passed by. While grand festivals are public-facing spectacles of divine power, another, more somber and private aspect of your priestly duties often calls upon your specialized knowledge from the house of life. This is your role as a master of funerary rites. When a person of noble standing or great wealth passes away, their family does not simply mourn. They initiate a complex, expensive, and lengthy process to ensure the deceased's successful journey into the afterlife. And you are a key consultant and efficient in this critical transition. Today, you have been summoned to the Waybit, the pure place, which is the workshop where the intricate process of mummification takes place. It is located on the edge of the town, near the desert and away from the main living areas, for obvious reasons of hygiene and ritual purity. The air here smells different, a strange, sharp chemical scent of natron, and resins overlaying the unavoidable, cloying sweetness of death. It is a smell that clings to your clothes and your memory. You are not here to perform the physical work of embalming. That is the job of a specialized team of craftsmen and priests who are experts in the gruesome but necessary art of preserving the physical body. Your role is more elevated, more ritualistic. You are here to oversee the process, to recite the correct sacred texts at each stage, and to ensure that every action is imbued with the necessary magical and religious significance. The family of the deceased, a high-ranking official named Mentuhotep, has paid an enormous fee for the finest possible funerary services, and they expect perfection. You enter the workshop. The body of Mentuhotep lies on a long, sloping stone table, allowing fluids to drain away. The embalmers are already at work. It is a scene that would shock and horrify an outsider, but to you and the workers, it is a sacred, scientific procedure. The internal organs, the liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines, have already been removed through a small incision in the abdomen. You watch as these organs are individually cleansed, anointed with oils, and wrapped in linen. You recite the specific incantation for each one, invoking the protection of one of the four sons of Horus. "Oh, happy," you might chant as the lungs are wrapped. "Place your protection around this, that it may be preserved for eternity." These wrapped organs will be placed into four special containers known as canopic jars. The brain, believed to be the center of emotion but not intellect, that was the heart, is removed through the nose using long bronze hooks, a process that is as delicate as it is macabre. It is then discarded, as it was not considered necessary for the afterlife. The heart, however, the seat of intelligence and conscience, is left inside the body. It would be needed for the final judgment in the Hall of Two Truths, where it would be weighed against the feather of man, or truth. Your primary role begins in earnest once the body has been emptied and cleansed. The embalmers pack the body cavity with temporary bundles of natron, the same naturally occurring salt mixture you used for your morning purification, but in far greater quantities. The entire body is then buried in a huge pile of this dry, crystalline natron. Here it will remain for 40 days, a period of intense dehydration. The salt will draw out all the moisture from the tissues, preventing decay and preserving the flesh. During this long waiting period, you are not idle. You are busy consulting with Mentuhotep's family and managing the other preparations. You review the texts for his custom Book of the Dead, ensuring the scribes in the House of Life are making no errors. You advise the family on the selection of amulets to be placed within the mummy's wrappings, the jed pillar for stability, the scarab beetle for rebirth, the ankh for life. Each amulet is a piece of magical technology, and its correct placement is critical. After the 40 days have passed, you return to the Waybit. The body is exhumed from its mountain of natron. It is now shrunken, blackened, and leathery, but perfectly preserved. The temporary natron packs are removed, and the body cavity is washed and then packed with clean linen, sawdust, and fragrant resins to restore a more lifelike shape. This is where the true art of the wrappers begins. This is the final, most intricate stage, and it is a high ritual. You stand by, chanting continuously from a papyrus scroll as a team of highly skilled priests begins to wrap the body in hundreds of yards of fine linen. It is not a random wrapping. It is a precise, layered process. Amulets are placed at specific locations between the layers of linen. A mask of painted cartonnage, or in the case of someone as wealthy as Mentuhotep, of solid gold, is placed over the head and shoulders. Each layer of bandage, each knot tied, is accompanied by a specific spell you recite, words of power that bind the protection into the very fabric of the wrappings. You live again. You live again forever. Here you are young again forever. You intone, your voice a steady drone against the rustle of the linen. This process can take another 15 days. The entire procedure from death to final burial takes around 70 days, a period of immense activity and expense. The sheer amount of resources, linen, natron, oils, gold, manpower, dedicated to one person's death is a testament to the profound importance of the afterlife in your culture. It is the ultimate expression of human resilience in the face of mortality, an elaborate and determined refusal to accept that death is the end. Finally, the mummy is complete. It is a tightly wrapped, anonymous cocoon, its human features now hidden, transformed into a divine vessel ready for its journey. Your work at the Waybit is done, but your final, most public role in Mentuhotep's journey is yet to come, officiating at the funeral procession and the opening of the mouth ceremony at the tomb entrance, the same ritual in spirit as the one you perform on the god's statue each morning. But this time, to give a dead man the ability to eat, speak, and live again in the field of reeds. You have guided him through the workshop of transformation. Now you must guide him to the door of eternity. Life within the temple walls is not always a serene tableau of ritual and scholarship. Like any large, powerful institution, the priesthood is a complex human society with its own internal politics, rivalries, and subtle power dynamics. While your days are structured by sacred duties, you must also constantly navigate the intricate social hierarchy to maintain your standing, protect your position, and perhaps even advance through the ranks. This is a game played not with weapons or loud arguments, but with whispers, alliances, and the careful observance of protocol. The temple priesthood is not a monolithic entity. It is a highly stratified organization. At the top is the high priest, the first prophet of the god. He is a major political figure, often appointed by the pharaoh himself, and wields immense power and influence. Beneath him are various ranks of prophets, fathers of the god, and then the ranks of the Wab priests like yourself. Below you are the lector priests, who specialize in reciting texts, and a whole host of junior priests, scribes, artisans, and laborers. Each rank comes with specific duties, privileges, and, most importantly, a specific share in the reverted offerings. Your current position as a Wab priest on the core rotation for the inner sanctuary is a prestigious one. You earned it through years of diligent study, a flawless record of ritual performance, and perhaps the quiet patronage of a more senior priest who saw promise in you. But this position is not guaranteed for life. A single, significant mistake in a ritual, a mismanaged estate that leads to a shortfall in offerings, or simply falling out of favor with a superior, could see you demoted or reassigned to a less desirable post. Imagine being sent to oversee a remote, dusty temple on the Nubian border, a clear political exile. The pressure to maintain perfection is not just about pleasing the god, it's about job security. The politics often play out in the most mundane of settings. During the daily administrative meetings where you review scrolls and ledgers, a debate might arise over the allocation of resources. One senior priest, a father of the god, might argue for more funding to be directed toward the carving of new reliefs in his ancillary chapel. You, knowing the state of the granaries, might feel that the funds would be better spent on repairing a dike on a key agricultural estate. How you voice your opinion is critical. To directly contradict a superior would be an act of gross insubordination. Instead, you must be subtle. A truly pious suggestion, honored father, you might begin, and the god would surely be pleased by such beautiful new carvings. Perhaps if we could ensure the prosperity of the Merit estate by repairing the dike, the resulting surplus in the harvest would provide even grander funds for the chapel next season. You have reframed your descent as a supportive, long-term plan, a technique any modern middle manager would recognize. Rivalries are common, especially among priests of similar rank vying for the same promotions. There is another priest, Amenhotep, who is also on the core sanctuary team. He is competent, but you suspect he is overly ambitious. You notice he is particularly deferential to the high priest's chief steward, always offering him the best cuts of meat from his own portion of the offerings. You see him engaging in quiet conversations with influential scribes. He is building a network. You are not an overtly political creature, preferring the quiet satisfaction of a well-performed ritual, but you know you cannot remain aloof. You must also maintain your own alliances. You make a point of spending time in the House of Life, offering assistance to a respected elder scholar who is working on a difficult medical text. You ensure that the reports from the estates you oversee are always impeccable, reflecting well on your administrative skill. It is a quiet, constant campaign of competence and strategic relationship building. One of the most potent sources of internal conflict, a fact historians have pieced together from letters and official records, is family. The priesthood was not always a purely meritocratic institution. High-ranking positions often became hereditary, passed from father to son. The nephew of a high priest might be fast-tracked through the ranks, promoted over more experienced but less connected priests like yourself. This can be a source of deep, unspoken resentment. You see a young, arrogant priest, barely out of his novitiate, given responsibility over a prime temple estate simply because his uncle is the second prophet. You watch as he mismanages it, yet you know that pointing out his failures directly would be political suicide. You must simply trust that his incompetence will eventually be noticed by others, or you must find a way to gently guide him to a better course of action without appearing to criticize him. Your interactions with the novices are also part of this complex web. As you instruct them, you are also observing them. You identify the truly gifted, like the boy Nakhet. Taking such a boy under your wing, becoming his mentor, is not just an act of generosity. It is also a strategic investment. If he rises through the ranks, he will remember you as his teacher and patron, becoming a valuable ally in the future. You are building a support system that will endure for decades. These subtle maneuvers, these quiet rivalries and alliances, are the invisible currents that flow beneath the calm, orderly surface of temple life. You must be as skilled a navigator of these social waters as you are a performer of sacred rites. Your survival and success depend not just on your piety, but on your political acumen. You must maintain a public face of serene detachment while privately calculating every move. It is a stressful, demanding dance, but it is as much a part of your reality as the shaven head and the white linen kilt. It is the human resilience of adapting to a complex social structure, ensuring your own place within the great and eternal house of the god. The day's cycles are complete. The god rests, sealed in its shrine. Your family sleeps soundly in your mud brick home. But your duty is not entirely over. On a rotating basis, a senior priest is assigned the night vigil, and tonight, that honor falls to you. You do not return home after the evening ceremony. Instead, you make your way to the temple's roof. The journey upward is a silent one, a climb up a narrow, steep stone staircase hidden within the thickness of the temple walls. The air grows cooler and cleaner as you ascend, leaving the lingering ground-level sense of the day behind. You emerge onto the vast, flat expanse of the temple roof, and the entire cosmos opens up above you. The world below is a dark, sleeping landscape, but the sky is breathtakingly alive. With no light pollution to obscure the view, the stars are a brilliant, dense tapestry of shimmering diamonds thrown across a bolt of black velvet. The Milky Way is a luminous, milky river, a celestial counterpart to the Nile that flows unseen in the darkness below. This is not a security watch. The temple has its own guards for that. Your vigil is a spiritual one. You are here to watch, to contemplate, and to be a silent, conscious witness to the gods' nightly journey. From this vantage point, you are closer to the heavens, the realm through which the sun god now travels in his battle against the forces of chaos. Your presence here is a gesture of solidarity, a sign that even while the mortal world sleeps, a dedicated servant remains awake and watchful, maintaining the sanctity of the temple which is the earthly anchor for this celestial drama. You begin to walk the perimeter of the roof, your bare feet on the cool stone slabs. The silence is absolute, a profound quiet you rarely experience, even in the pre-dawn hours. It is broken only by the faint whisper of the night breeze and the soft sound of your own footsteps. This is a time for reflection, a rare moment of solitude and introspection in a life that is otherwise highly structured and communal. Here, away from the demands of ritual, administration, and family, you can simply exist. Your gaze drifts across the landscape. You can see the dark shape of the sacred lake, its surface reflecting the brightest stars. You can see the hulking forms of the great pylons and the sleeping village beyond. Further to the west lies the necropolis, the silent city of the dead, its tombs carved into the cliffs that mark the edge of the desert. You are standing at the nexus point of the entire Egyptian world. The temple, the town, the river, the fields, the desert, and the sky. You see how it all fits together, a perfectly ordered system under the watchful eyes of the gods. You are not idle in your thoughts. Your mind, trained in the house of life, naturally turns to the deeper meanings of the cycles you help maintain. You think about the sun's journey, a perfect metaphor for the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Each sunset is a small death, each sunrise a triumphant rebirth. Your work, you realize, is to ensure that this pattern never breaks. You and your fellow priests are the tenders of the eternal engine of creation. It is a weight of responsibility that would crush a single man, but you are not a single man. You are part of an unbroken chain, a tradition of service. The priest who kept this vigil 100 years ago saw these same stars. The one who will keep it 100 years from now will see them too. This thought, which once seemed comforting, now feels profound. You are a fleeting moment in an eternal duty. You might pull out a small ostracon, a shard of pottery, and a piece of charcoal, not to do accounts, but perhaps to sketch a constellation, or to write down a line for a hymn that comes to you in the stillness. Scholars will one day find caches of these informal jottings, offering a rare, personal glimpse into the minds of priests like you, a window into the thoughts that occupied the quiet moments between the grand rituals. As the hours pass, you track the movement of the stars. You are the clock of the temple tonight. You watch as the constellations familiar to you, the celestial boats, the great hippopotamus, the leg of the ox, wheel slowly across the sky. Your astronomical training allows you to read this celestial map with ease. You note the precise moment when a particular star group reaches its zenith. This knowledge is not just academic. It tells you how much of the night has passed, how close the dawn is, how far the sun god has progressed in his perilous journey through the underworld. In the deepest hour of the night, a faint chill settles in. You pull your linen sash tighter around your shoulders. It is in this moment of deep quiet and solitude that you feel the purest connection to your calling. Stripped of all the ritual and bureaucracy, it comes down to this: a single, faithful servant, keeping watch under the silent, witnessing stars. You are a guardian of the threshold, a lone sentinel ensuring that the bridge between the human and the divine remains strong through the darkest hours. The world sleeps, trusting in you, trusting in the God. And as the first, almost imperceptible hint of gray begins to soften the eastern horizon, you know that your trust has been rewarded. The battle has been won. The sun is coming. Your vigil is over, and a new day is about to be born. As your watch concludes, a deep sense of peace settles upon you. The stars, your companions through the long, quiet hours, begin to fade, surrendering their brilliance to the inevitable dawn. You have held the space, kept the faith, and the eternal cycle has proven true once more. The world you serve has been kept safe through the night. The journey down the stone steps feels different from the climb up. You are descending back into the world of action and duty, leaving the silent, contemplative space of the cosmos behind. But you carry a piece of that stillness with you. This life, your life, was one of profound service, a constant balancing act between the divine and the mundane, the sacred and the practical. From the cold, purifying water of dawn to the star-filled silence of the night vigil, your every moment was dedicated to maintaining the cosmic order. You were an accountant for the gods, a counselor to the masses, a teacher to the young, and a guide for the dead. Your hands balanced ledgers of grain and hoisted the gilded bark of the god. Your voice recited comforting prophecies and whispered the secret, powerful words that awakened a deity. Think of the sheer, unwavering belief it took to perform these tasks, day after day, year after year, with such precision and faith. The rituals you performed, the knowledge you preserved in the house of life, the social order you upheld. These were the invisible threads that wove the tapestry of ancient Egyptian civilization, giving it a resilience and continuity that astonishes the world to this day. Your own comforts, the soft bed you lie in, the quiet hum of electricity, the certainty that the sun will rise without a battle against a great serpent, are a legacy of a world built on different principles, different assurances. Appreciate the simplicity of your own night, the peace of your own rest. Now, as your own journey leads you towards sleep, let the imagery of that ancient world fade. Let the scent of myrrh and the weight of sacred duty dissolve. Let the silent, starry expanse of the temple roof become a calm, quiet space in your own mind. There are no more rituals to perform, No more accounts to balance. Your only duty now is to rest. Let the quiet rhythm of your own breathing be the only chant you hear, guiding you gently, peacefully, into the deep and restorative stillness of your own sweet dreams.